Good morning, everybody. I'm meteorologist Thomas Battle, and we are going to be talking about the winter storm that's headed our way this weekend. Right now, looks like most of us are going to be dealing with snow, at least. But we're also expecting this storm to bring some ice as well. Unfortunately, that ice is going to be knocking down snow totals, so for anybody expecting for just an all-snow event, doesn't look very likely. Now, we still could get lucky on that system, but there's a lot that still goes into the systems like this when it comes to cold air versus warmer air moving in above us. And a lot of that can get confusing, especially when we're talking about really cold temperatures at the ground anyways. But we expect snow to be primarily what we're starting with, at least. This is starting Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, and going throughout the night before it starts to switch over as we go into Sunday. At that point, we're dealing with freezing rain and sleet. And that freezing rain and sleet is probably going to be quite a bit, especially for the south side. We'll be seeing higher totals the further south you get, more into the warm air that's going to be higher above us. And behind this, we're talking about cold air for several days. In fact, we could be below freezing for nearly a week if we don't see some warmer temperatures maybe in the middle of next week. So there's a lot going on. First of all, let's just go ahead and kind of look at the day. We're not dealing with much for today. It's just clouds and sunshine out there. Moving into Saturday afternoon is when this starts to really get going. That's when we'll start to see some of the snow coming in from the west. NRV, south side, some of it, we'll start to see some of these snow showers moving in. But I want to let you know that even though you might start seeing snow popping up on the radar, it might not start snowing immediately if it's moving directly over you, because there's still going to be some dry air beneath a lot of this snow first. So until we get to about 8 o'clock, I wouldn't be counting on much snow to be falling quite yet. We'll get the heaviest snow after the sun sets and then throughout most of the night. You see these darker blues here. That's where we'll likely see our heaviest snowfall. And that happens after sunset and probably before about 3 a.m. Once we get past midnight, we're going to be getting more concerned about this line of pink you see here at the bottom. That's going to be the freezing rain and the sleet. That pushes northward with what we call a warm nose in the upper levels. That allows for a lot of that snow to start melting, and it turns into other types of wintry weather, other types that are even less pleasant sometimes to drive around on. But that's what's going to be taking over as we go into early Sunday morning. And unfortunately as well, most of Sunday we're going to be dealing with it, looks like, as widespread sleet or freezing rain will be in the forecast throughout the day on Sunday. It might get some periods where it lessens, but it doesn't break up too much until we start getting close to sunset again on Sunday evening. So we're talking about more than 24 hours of some wintry weather here, and it will continue just a little, maybe lingering with more freezing rain or trying to switch to just rain behind it, but most of us just likely to deal with ice for a while. And now, what I just mentioned, the possibility for us to see more than just a little bit of this ice. We could deal also with the freezing rain. Rain doesn't look super likely, but we'll also start out with snow. Now, when you normally have snow, that's just cold air top to bottom. Top of the atmosphere, snowflakes are forming in those clouds, goes all the way down to the ground, never melts. But what we're expecting to be a problem for most of early Sunday is this thin layer of warm air. It's going to be about 7,000 or 8,000 feet up. That's going to start melting those snowflakes. When that happens, it turns into just small raindrops, essentially. But since it's still going to be really cold beneath it for the next 6,000 feet from there down to the ground, that's plenty of time for it to refreeze. And instead of it being a nice puffy snowflake, it's going to turn into a small hard ice pellet. And that's where we get sleet. That's what we're primarily going to be seeing early in the morning hours. And we could get quite a lot of it. In fact, some models for us are showing good inch of sleet accumulation. That's going to be piling on top of all the snow, which means a lot of the snow, if you're walking on it Saturday night by midnight going into Sunday morning, it will sound pretty normal for snow. But if you're walking on it 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, it's going to be a lot crunchier because you've got that layer of sleet on top of it. And depending on how much that falls onto the roads, I do think a lot of the roads might be having a hard time with it as well. If we keep seeing more and more warm air move in, if that warm layer that's supposed to be very shallow, if it deepens a little, we do see that as a possibility late on Sunday. That's when we start talking about freezing rain, and that's just a deeper layer of warm air, and there's not as much time beneath it to refreeze it. But it's still going to be really cold here at the ground, so we still could have that happen here today. As we go into Saturday night, Sunday, that's what we'll be watching. Now, let's talk a little bit about that ice potential. Like I said, the further south you are, the more likely you are going to see that. Further north, less likely to be dealing with more of this coating the glaze. I think quarter inch is almost worst case scenario for us. South side, I think you're pretty likely to get close to that in several spots. We had similar icing events last year, but we didn't have as much of it for a long period. We had more specifically freezing rain events versus this just being sleet and melting snow. This is hopefully going to be more of a snow event than an ice event, but we've been leaning into the warm air, and we're seeing these ice totals continue to climb back up. So our latest expectation for snowfall lines up a lot with the higher numbers further north and less to the south where the ice is, because the more warm air we see, the less we're going to see the snow. At the moment, you could probably see an inch or up to 2 or 3 inches around the south side. I think those numbers probably not going to change too much. We're going to be on the low end. If you're in Danville or South Boston, not likely to be breaking that too much. When it starts to get iffy, that's further north, because we could see that sleet work its way as far north as possibly Campbell County, into Lynchburg, middle of Bedford, the city of Bedford, trying to get as far north as it can get. It doesn't look like it's going to get much farther than about that line. As you work your way up towards the interstate, work your way into the Blue Ridge, should be more cold, less of that warm nose. That's where we're most likely to see those highest snow totals, where we could get upwards of 6, 7, 8, 9 inches of snow. If we bust or we see the boon potential from this storm system and the numbers are much higher for snowfall, that's likely because that warm air never breaks as far north as it looks like it's going to. That can happen, but at the moment, everything seems to be starting to congeal, and it looks like if I was to just give a broad paintbrush, we could say 2 to about 9 inches of snow area-wide. Lower amounts will be further south, higher amounts as you work your way north, work your way into Lexington. Areas like Lexington could be close to 10 inches. It will be much higher as you work your way further north than that, working towards Stanton, Hot Springs. We will see quite a lot of snow in those areas. So keep an eye on the forecast regardless, because this snow, yes, is going to fall before we get to the sleet, but we will probably start to see it compacted once the sleet starts to fall, and we maybe even have a little bit of rain. Let me give you a little timeline on kind of how this looks, at least as it starts. This is just for Saturday night. We're going to start this here at 5 o'clock. Notice rain, just green. We're not really expecting any significant rainfall from this one, but we will be getting the ice, the sleet. We'll say freezing rain. You can put that in there possibly, but the snow is primarily what we're going to be starting with, and that'll be going into the NRV, likely late afternoon and into the early evening. Heaviest snowfall should be happening after the sun sets, and this is likely before 3 a.m. I think after you get past about 2, 3 a.m., we're starting to mix in a lot more of the ice. You could start seeing a little sleet even closer to midnight, but most of this should be slowing down when it comes to the snowfall, at least, once the sun's coming up. We still have ice potential throughout the day. How much ice we're seeing falling, though, still TBD. Your location is also going to be a big factor in how much ice you get. South side could be getting a 1/4 inch of freezing rain and a lot more of sleet. Working your way north into areas like Bedford, Roanoke, Lynchburg, we're not as likely to see quite as much of the freezing rain and sleet, and we should see a little more snow. But all of that just kind of balances each other out. Each one's going to give and take. Power outages, also a problem, because as we have more sleet and freezing rain, or even just snow trying to melt and temperatures are at 20 degrees, so a lot of it will try to refreeze on some of these branches, we might have some of those power outages. And I think that's going to be more of an issue as we go into the middle of the day, more going into Sunday. For now, doesn't look like we're going to have to worry too much more about a lot of these going on for the next 24 hours, but it will start to be more of an impact going into Saturday evening. By then, about 8 o'clock, that's when most of this will start getting going. Once this is all done, Monday morning, we should be able to start seeing a little more sunshine, I think, back in the forecast. Bad news is next week, temperatures are still going to be very, very cold. We're likely to be below freezing starting Monday, actually starting Saturday, but for the work week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday's close to freezing, Thursday and Friday are still below freezing. That means most of next week, aside from the sunshine, there's not a lot of melt going on. So whatever snow and ice we get, a lot of it could be sticking around, which is going to make for really tricky travel, especially on Monday. It looks to be one of our worst days. But that is about it for me. That's all I have for now. Go ahead, make sure that you have your preps done by today. Tomorrow morning, you might have a little bit of time out there. Like I said, this doesn't really kick up till late in the day on Saturday, but it's going to be really cold tomorrow because the temperature is just not able to warm back up. But make sure you have your preps done and you have a plan for the rest of the weekend. Hopefully we're not losing power out there, anything widespread, but it is a possibility. We'll, of course, keep you updated right here at ABC 13 on air and online. Meteorologist George Flickinger and Will Stafford and I will all be here throughout the weekend, keeping you safe and letting you know what's going on. For now, have a great day. Be safe.